Tom Wiesek hier vom PHP-Magazin. Hallo, ich bin in München auf der International PHP Conference und ich bin hier mit Steve Kamerman. I'm going to switch to English. Steve, please introduce yourself.
So my name is Steve Kamerman. I'm a PHP developer. I was the author of an open source project called TerraWorfel, which became quite popular in the mid-2000s. And I've started a company with some business partners called Scientia Mobile. And we've taken this Worfel project and made it commercial.
Your topic here is hip-hop for PHP. Please tell us something about hip-hop.
Sure. So hip-hop for PHP is essentially a source code. It started as a source code translator from PHP into C++. The idea is to increase performance. Now it exists in a virtual machine form, but the goal is still the same, which is to increase the performance of PHP.
So we do have a performance problem with PHP, is that right?
Yes, definitely. PHP is not a high-performance language. So Facebook, being the quintessential large-scale PHP site, had a big problem of being able to scale. So they were getting, their traffic was increasing at such a high rate that they couldn't even add servers fast enough to handle the increase in traffic. So.
Okay, to be honest, how many projects are out there needing this kind of performance like Facebook does?
There are certainly not very many projects, yeah. Facebook has obviously thousands of servers, and so even if the problem is going from one server to two servers, that can be a lot of effort on your part. So if you can add a component to your server to delay or otherwise defer this transition to multiple servers, that might be of interest to you.
Why should I, as an average developer for maybe a company with, don't know, 5,000 people or something like that, use hip-hop for PHP? Is there any reason for me to use it?
Absolutely. In our company, we have lots of customers that are startup companies that have maybe 5 total employees, and they're serving billions of page views per month. Usually these are ad networks and these types of things. So there are use cases in which it's very important to have low latency and to be able to handle a lot of traffic. For example, when serving an ad from an ad network, you might have a total of 50 milliseconds to be able to decide what ad you're going to serve and serve it. And so if you're adding 20 milliseconds of latency because of Apache's overhead, that's very bad news.
Well, indeed. How difficult is it to switch my application, so my average in PHP built application to hip-hop?
Hip-hop is a replacement for the PHP runtime. And so obviously, Facebook having developed it, it's tailored to their needs. And so there are extensions that are not supported. For example, MySQLi. So if you use MySQLi, I can tell you right now it's not going to work. Now they've made a commitment to add this extension as well as others, but at the end of the day, you need to unit test your application with hip-hop to make sure it's compatible.
So Facebook wants to give something back to the community with hip-hop?
I'm not sure that their intent was to give back to the community necessarily. That seems to be an awesome side effect. Now, because hip-hop replaces the PHP runtime, a lot of the code from PHP may be integrated into the hip-hop code, and therefore it has to be distributed under, well, in this case, it has to be distributed under the same license, which is the PHP license. So its inextricable link to PHP, I think, is the reason that it stays open source.
Okay. So how many features of PHP 5.5 are supported by hip-hop?
Well, I can only name about 8 features that I can think of that have been added to 5.5 from 5.4, but I can tell you that hip-hop's focus is to maintain function parity with 5.4 first. And to that end, it's very close.
So are there plans to change that behavior?
You mean to upgrade it to 5.5 compatibility? Yeah. I'm sure that's in the works, yeah. I mean, it's a matter of if they're using the function, then it's valuable to them and there'll be an incentive to add. But I mean, in PHP 5.5, you have things like array column, which is a rarely used function, or multiple iterator, which iterates keys and values from different sources. These things are neat, but there's plenty of ways to get around them.
Yeah, but we do have the password hashing API, for example. So it would be great, the password hashing API. So it would be great to have this one in hip-hop.
True. Yeah, what you say is right. I mean, the fact that there's not support for 5.5 is potentially a problem. But to give you an example, in preparing for my talk at IPC, I was doing some unit testing on the Zen framework too. In hip hop, it was like 98% of the unit tests were passing, or 90%. But in the PHP runtime, it was the same, also 90%. So, there is always some stuff that doesn't work. I mean, to say that you're going to immediately switch all your servers to 5.5 and not anticipate any sort of problems in your code base would, I think, be ignorant. So, so there may be some inherent risk anyway in using features that are just introduced.
Mentioning your session, so what can we look for?
Well, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about why PHP is slow. You know, what improvements does hip-hop for PHP make? How what is the level of effort for integration for if you want to switch? You know, the pros and cons. I'm not suggesting everyone use hip-hop for PHP. I'm suggesting that everyone understand that there are alternatives out there, and this may be a good substitute for the standard PHP run.
So one last question: so why is PHP slow?
Sure. PHP is slow for a couple of big reasons. The first one is called symbol table lookup. The problem is that PHP has to go looking for every variable that you use. So if you have a function named foo and it takes a parameter named bar, it has to go first look in the symbol table for the function foo, figure out where it is in memory, retrieve that, then go figure out what the variable bar is and go find it in memory. In addition, it doesn't have static binding for constants. So where a constant's value might be Steve, and in a compiled language it's replaced with the literal string. In PHP, that's not the case. The second major problem with PHP is that the interpreter can't infer the types of the variables. So I might have a variable called $a that's a string, and I might turn it into an int and then into an object, and then back to null. I might unset it and then turn it back into a string again. And because of this, there's no way to optimize the code execution path underneath for different types of variables.
Steve, thank you for taking time, and I hope you enjoy the International PHP Conference, and I hope you do enjoy Munich.
I will indeed. Thank you.